Coming up this week on the Digital Lifestyle Show 785, Garry and Richard are here, and we're talking about our predictions for 2021. And I'll be looking back at what we predicted last year and seeing how well we did or how far wrong we were. It's been a very challenging year last year, so we'll see whether we got it right or we got it wrong. Plus, we'll be talking about Christmas gifts that we got, what we like, streaming services, media centre, all sorts of stuff. So let's get straight on with the show. Rich and Garry, good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
And welcome to the first show of 2021.
Right. Do you think when we started the show way back when, well, at least when you started the show way back when, Ian, you could make it to 2021?
No, you wouldn't have believed it, would you? Yeah, I never thought we'd be at 2021. Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it, that we technology changes and we still get excited by the technology, which is good. I think when we stop getting excited about it, that's when we got problems.
Yeah, frankly, if you'd asked me 7 months ago if we'd make it to 2021, I'd say 50-50.
There is that as well,
yeah.
Too, of course.
Yeah. It's funny, someone commented on a YouTube video. So I did a video this week of a Jabra headset, the one I'm using for my Teams calls, not using tonight because I'm using the mic, but and it must have come up related videos or whatever, and this person had seen the link, how to rip music with Windows Media Center. And the comment was, I was 6 when you posted that video.
That's scary,
thanks very much. Yeah, so and we're still here, so that's good. And I think we're going to be sat around certainly down here for a while, but we still have our dream of a get together at the Computer Museum at some point in the future. Yeah. Not quite sure when that'll be, but
this summer, definitely this summer.
Well, if Richard says that, then that's good.
Definitely this summer.
Richard knows.
Yeah, you just got to believe these things and be positive. This summer, definitely.
Okay. All right. Okay. We'll see you there.
Good.
So anyway, this is our first show of 2021. So I hope you had a good Christmas and our listeners had a good Christmas. Did you, before we talk about our 2021 topics, anything from Santa that you want, tech related, that you want to talk about?
Lego, lots of Lego.
Lots of Lego. I think, did your family have now found a thing that you like and that they can buy you?
Yeah, I think that's always the way, isn't it? Once they find something, you're going to get all lots of it.
I just need more shelf space. More shelf space. I mean, one Saturn V is okay, but there's always space for a second one, or maybe the third one actually.
I think my biggest tech present was actually having my mum at Christmas lunch virtually. I think I've spoken about my mum several times on this show, being not the most technically astute, and she's a bit of a technophobe. Very intelligent young lady, but she's not doesn't really like technology very much. But she really took to the Echo Show we Go Centre for Christmas, and we actually placed it so that she was at the same height and the same position she would have been if she'd been on the table with us.
That's a good idea, yeah.
So she could share it. And I think the only problem we had was she wanted to reach through the screen a few times, but it worked really well. And obviously with the restrictions out there, that was a novel use of technology, which worked really, really well. Yeah,
and it makes a change from using Teams or Zoom for these things.
Yeah, and apparently I haven't actually got my Christmas present because it hasn't been released yet. So I've been told I'm getting one of the new Echo shows. So I'll be able to tell you all about that when it comes out, the one which follows you around the room.
Oh yeah, I was looking at Echo shows. I didn't see that one with the room one, but I did see that they've got a new one, larger one, haven't they?
Yeah.
Well, there's a few new.
Well, this is the biggest one, but it's not actually out yet. So hopefully it will be at some point.
Yeah, I was thinking of whether to get, because I've got a first gen dot, second gen dot in here, and I was thinking of getting the one with the screen because I quite like the screen ones that's in the kitchen. And I thought, well, maybe I don't know, but then I'm now thinking of what can I get to make my room even more exciting because I'm spending so much time in here. So what can I buy to justify the time I spend? So I was thinking of getting a new monitor. But I'm just not sure what to get yet. Do I go for one that's like a gaming type one to use for gaming stuff, or that I use probably like 3% of my time when I'm up here, or do I just get a big one that's good for work stuff, which is what I do spend most of the time on? So I'm not quite sure.
It's a tricky one, yeah. I mean, I did look at a Lenovo widescreen. Oh, crikey! I think it's a few months back now, and that was both. I mean, I think it could be used for gaming and productivity, but it was really good actually. I was quite surprised because I've been running with 3 screens for a while. I am toying with the idea of going just to one big widescreen because it seems to be easier to use, really.
Yeah, that's definitely what I was thinking. I've got a screen there, and then this Surface, is in front of it. And when I'm using my other day job stuff, I've got my Dell laptop, and I've got my other Surface here. And I think what I'm just thinking is one big screen, and just switch. So when I'm in day job mode, I have it in that, and when I'm in evening mode, I switch it to that, or gaming mode, I switch it to that. So I think I might just get a big. I don't know about the curved one. I think I prefer the flat ones, to be honest, because the curve is taking up a bit of desk space, isn't it? Bringing it forward. So I think I might just get a wide flat one.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Although curved is quite cool. Curved is cool. I'm just refreshing my memory. It was the 43.4 inch Lenovo monitor I looked at, and it had a nice curve, and it was I have to say it was really good. I was really impressed with it. So, and that was of course a year ago, and they've come down in price since then. So,
yeah, maybe I think 27, 30 inch. Maybe that is enough for me. I don't know. I'll have to see. Kind of an hour in, so I'll wait to see what else comes along. So maybe one of those and an Echo Show just for a little second screen or something like that. I'm not sure.
Yeah, we're looking at where things are now. Let's face it, we're going to be in our boxes for a little bit longer, aren't we? So, I do need to get myself a decent webcam as well. Obviously, you can't see me on this because the webcam here is so terrible. I don't bother turning it on. I'm going to have to get myself a decent HD webcam. Ideally, they could follow me around.
Yeah, they follow me around bits. The more expensive part. I have to say, this really cheap webcam I've been using for the last few months, I'm really impressed with. I mean, this one I'm on at the moment only cost 18 quid. I think it's really good, and considering how low light the area I'm in at the moment is, it does a really good job.
Yeah, so I guess that's what a lot of people are thinking: bigger monitors and HD webcams. That's the thing for 2021.
Yeah,
the way forward.
Yeah. Actually, while we're talking, I'll dig up what that one was, because I'm trying to remember what the manufacturer was, but it's a Chinese make. They sent it for the review, and it's really I've been really impressed with it. It works really well. I'll dig it out while we're talking.
I did get a bit of use out of Game Pass while I was off, because I had a few days off, and I played Flight Sim for a bit. But then I installed Forza Horizon 4, and I really actually got quite into that. I really enjoy that. As we talked about in the past, getting set up for a gaming session. But if it takes a long time to get it set up, by the time you set it up, you've got to do something else. And so if I get the pedals and the VR headset and Project Cars 2 or whatever, it takes quite a time to get that set up. But what I found with Horizon, and I'm just using an Xbox controller plugged into a gaming laptop, I can just open the laptop, press load the game. It takes a few seconds to load up, and you can start playing. And the very short games on that. So if you do a little race, whatever, it's 3 laps, or it's very, very short little tasks and things on that. So I found that that's actually quite playable, where you can pick it up, play it for 10 minutes, go off and do something else, come back to it, and so my gaming laptop works brilliantly for that as well. It doesn't, the resources are great for that. So I actually quite like that. So I think it's another $7.99 a month for Game Pass for PC. So I think I might do at least one more month while I have nowhere to go. So, and it's also quite nice with the laptop as well. So you don't have to be sat up in this room where I am now. I can go downstairs and sit on the sofa and play while watching TV or something. So you're not locked away playing, So it's been quite good for me. So I think I'll play that till I get bored with that game and then see what's next. I think that's a good thing about Game Pass as well, isn't it? That you can get bored with it and go on to the next game. But I don't really play it very often. But I still, to buy the game at 40 quid or whatever, I probably wouldn't get the use out of it, but for a few months, maybe I do Game Pass for a few months until we can get out and about again. I think it works out quite well. So that's although it was a gift to myself. As
Always the best gifts, the ones to yourself. That webcam I'm using is by a company called Hamtod, HAMTOD, and I've just noticed that the price has gone up significantly since I last looked. It's now £35, so which is probably what it's worth, to be honest. It's a really good camera, so yeah, highly impressed with that.
And they're still quite difficult to get on hold of. Not as bad as it was, aren't they? Webcams, headsets, monitors, all this kind of stuff. People are still purchasing them for home offices. So we haven't got any obviously news as such to talk about. It's the first week first week back at work, effectively. But what we did last year, we kind of talked about what we were looking forward to in 2020. Now, obviously, we weren't quite fully aware of what was happening in 2020.
That was definitely a difficult one.
Yeah. But I did. So I did. This is anybody wants to play along, they can do it. It was show 734, and it was 16 minutes 40 into the show we started the discussion. We didn't do definite predictions, but I picked out some themes that we talked about. So I'll start with yours, Gary. What you said you were looking forward to in 2020 was, and you did qualify this as saying late 2020, was quantum computing having its first impact, and that we would see that, but not necessarily on Earth. You said.
Yeah, not necessarily on Earth, and I'll still hold with that. It has been delayed because obviously things have been delayed generally.
Just so you know, it's no longer late 2020, Gary. I just want to put it out there now.
I know. Yeah, late 2021. I said things have been delayed because things have just been delayed, but things are progressing. I mean, there were a couple of announcements the last few weeks which look towards the whole quantum computing things. I mean, one of the reasons I've said not necessarily on the Earth, it's actually a lot easier to do this in space if you get the right shielding in place and the right temperatures and things like that. It's somewhat easier to get things out there, and I think the Chinese may be on the route to doing something very, very impressive with this. I mean, I was kind of hoping that Microsoft would be there, that they've got a really good idea. At the moment, Google has made a few advances over everything else, but I think we are going to see some of this stuff starting to come in place, and we need to see it now because, as I said last week, the whole idea of combining quantum computing with the medical leaps going forward, as I said on last show, I think that makes a huge difference potentially to how we work with things in the future. I mean, there was someone I was watching just a few moments ago saying he didn't think this would be the last pandemic, and if we're going to have more, we need to be able to react very quickly, and we potentially can with the type of things we've got now. We've talked about RNA last episode. I keep forgetting we didn't have an episode last week. last episode, but those things need a lot of computing power, and if we can get the quantum computing out there, and it's one of these things which is always just coming soon, but when it does arrive, it's going to have a huge impact.
Yeah, and one of the things you were sort of concerned about was, or I mentioned that we have to get quantum computing encryption sorted out, because as soon as we get quantum computing, then that breaks all decryption because it's exponential computing power.
Yeah, indeed it does. And I mean, I think that's. I mean, always someone will find a nefarious use for something anyway, but I think it's probably a way off before people will be able to use quantum computing to do that, because, as I said, if we talk about having space stations to be able to run it on, but government actors, that does tend to make it be a little bit interesting. So yeah, I think I still think that's something I do expect to see something on this year. Somewhere along the line, I think the priorities have probably changed slightly, and things we'll probably see more movement on some of the biological computing front, as in preference to the quantum computing side of things. Some of the people who are working on quantum computing are also working on the biological computing side of things, and the RNA side of things is really key on that. And obviously, we've already seen that's got some impact. So, yeah, I still think that was a good shout, but obviously the circumstances changed.
Yeah. The other thing we talked about as well is whether you said that you thought that astronomers and people like that are going to get angry because of Starlink and those satellites. Is that still the case? Are they still there? Did they launch?
Yes, yeah. I mean, Starlink is proceeding. I think there's almost 1,000 up there now, aren't there?
Yeah,
and there are, I mean, they have tried. The SpaceX have tried to do some things to try and mitigate the effects, but certainly, I know a number of professional astronomers and stargazers who are, shall we say, not overly impressed with what's happened to the night sky. I think mainly because there's no way of avoiding the things. They're up there and they're in the way, and it's unfortunate, I'm afraid.
Yeah.
I think what might make people slightly angrier is the cost that's being proposed, because obviously it was being touted as this wonderful global thing that's going to bring the internet to the masses, and I think the cost is coming in at, isn't it, a $500 down payment for the terminal, I think, and almost $100 a month it's going to cost.
Yeah.
So it's not cheap either.
Yeah.
But it will. But obviously, if you're in a rural area, say in Western Europe or the US, it'll be great because you can probably afford that. But obviously, if you're somewhere else, it might be a bit trickier.
And sometimes you have to take these things against what they're competing against, because if you actually look at rural cable and things like that in the States, that could be well over $100 a month.
Oh, certainly, yeah.
So I think that's the issue here is that it's being priced for a particular market, and that market is probably not us.
I mean, I understand that some sets have begun to arrive in the UK as well. I saw in recent days that they've begun to turn up. So, I mean, certainly with the thousands that are up there already, and I mean, what I will say is the cadence at which SpaceX have been launching the Starlink satellites has been nothing short of breathtaking, really. Yeah. And reusing the booster every time, it's very, very impressive. So that I find very, very impressive. Just slightly concerned that these things are going up so fast. They're kind of running ahead of the regulators to decide actually how do we regulate what's happening to the night sky, because before you know it, they'll be there, and that's that.
Yeah. Well, that's typical Musk thinking, though, isn't it? I mean, does the same with Tesla. He basically puts it out there for the regulators to shut top down. Sort of like self-driving and things like that was all available before the regulators actually had anything to say about it. So it's an interesting one.
So Richard, one of the things we talked about from your sort of predictions, you said one of your big questions was, will Microsoft finish Windows 10X in time for the Neo launch?
Oh dear.
Yeah.
Well, that still probably holds, doesn't it?
Well, yeah, it's probably going to be true. It will be done before the Neo launch. But
yes, exactly. Yeah, the Neo has kind of. I mean, I think I also said the Neo might get delayed till 2021. I think it's safe to say it's probably not going to make it this year either. If it appears at all, it might be next year. 10X is. I mean, I can remember being very hopeful last year about 10X, and expecting to see the first public test versions of it, and yet there's been nothing seen of it in public whatsoever. So I guess that still stands. Will they finish it in time for the Neo launch? Probably, because it should be out. Rumors have it being out during the first half of this year, so maybe. But the Neo, which for me was more exciting, that looks like it's gone. It's just disappeared, isn't it?
It has, yeah. We'll come back to that. So when we talk about predictions for this year, you said about the Duo, you thought that might get delayed till 2021.
Yeah, I was wrong.
You did say at least you said maybe they'll sneak 100 devices out by the end of the year.
Well, yes, maybe that could be true, but depending on how much they're charging for it.
Yes. One of them's here.
Well done. Yes, so that I'm pleased to say that was wrong there. It came out much earlier than I think any of us expected in the summer. It was a I wouldn't call it exactly a surprise, but it was delightful when it turned up. Just unfortunately, it turned up in what I would describe as a bit like the HoloLens version 1, in that it felt very much like something which they developed almost prototype, really needed perhaps a little bit, a bit more baking time. But I do understand why the hardware had to come out when it did, because it was really getting quite long in the tooth, even though raw CPU power doesn't necessarily make it for a wonderful device. You can't avoid doing spec comparisons, and it was starting to look a bit old even in the summertime. So I'm glad it came out. I'm looking forward to version 2.
Yeah, definitely. We can come back. We'll talk about that as well. The other thing you said, you hope that Windows would get a small update in October rather than a big build update, which just like 2019. So you're right on that one. And you thought there would be a new Surface Book and a new Surface Go.
Yeah, that's unfortunate, isn't it? Yeah, I would have liked there to have been a new Surface Book. I don't think we had a new Surface Book, did we?
No.
Last year, which I think that was a real shame. I'm a bit concerned about the Surface Book and Studio, but we'll talk about those later. But the Go, what did surprise you was the Surface Laptop, the Surface Laptop Go that came out.
Yeah, that we didn't predict that one.
Not at all.
And I kind of thought that they might get a Surface Studio and a Surface Book update as well. So I was surprised that we didn't get one of those. But maybe that, like you said, that's a market change.
Yeah.
I did say that I expect Microsoft to change the dual screen focus Windows 10X to a single screen.
Well done.
Which I'm quite impressed that I did that, but not for the reasons that it turned out. I just thought that it was all along a bit of a ruse to talk about it as a 10X as a dual screen operating system, just so a bit of distraction, so that people weren't looking at it as a replacement or as an alternative to Windows 10. And I always thought that underlying they kind of knew that Windows 10X is the future of Windows 10. So I don't know whether the change, which they said is due to the pandemic and focus, whether that was always coming anyway, or whether that's actually was a genuine change. But I always thought that 10X was the future of Windows. But like you, I was disappointed that we didn't really see. I think there's a lot of work going on in the background, a huge amount of work going on in the background. It's just a shame we didn't get to see some of that. And I think we might get presented with a version of it in the coming months. And it would, and like we said that when we talked last show, it would have been nice to have some testing of that as Windows insiders, rather than just presented with this operating system that's complete, and we'll just be doing the bug check. But the bug going through doing the usual sort of bug testing. We'll see anyway. And the other thing, I did say that the October 2020 update might be a smaller update. I wasn't quite sure, so there was no real surprises from that side. So we didn't do a huge amount. One thing I did notice as well is that we all missed Windows Media Center still.
Yeah.
I think, Rich, your words were only there was a center to place all your media.
And I think it's miss it more every year actually, because there's so many things that it did that I still can't really do now. And I think we mentioned in the previous show how the failure of some of the cloud service providers has really highlighted the fact that, you can't guarantee you're going to have access to your stuff in the cloud all the time. It could fail any time, and it will come back. But just that critical moment when you actually need that resource, it's not there because the cloud's gone down. I think it did highlight the fact that there is still a place, I think, for an easy-to-use appliance in the home, which is a center for your media.
Yeah, so I wonder if we get one of those. I was actually thinking about that quite a lot the other day, because I don't have to mention this in the show, but I've recently moved, and I was chucking out a load of old stuff, and I came across all the old DVB-T card stuff I had. With the decoders and everything. Totally useless these days. You couldn't do anything with them. And I was thinking to sell these, and I looked on eBay, and they were selling for about £2.50 a unit. So I thought it's not even really worth even trying to sell them. And yet they were extremely expensive when I bought them, and did serve a really good purpose for a while. So
are they the black gold ones?
No, if it's black gold, I would have actually sold them. I actually can't remember the manufacturer. It's a German manufacturer, but
I've still got my black gold ones.
Yeah, the black gold ones are still useful because they did DVB-T. These are DVB-C, so they're not useful for anything these days. And back in the day, you could use them with a Virgin TV card quite legally, because you could actually decode it, but you can't in certain countries. That was a requirement, like Germany. You should be able to decode it, but you can't do that anymore. So I think it was a technology which was well ahead of its time.
I found my I was up in the loft the other day and I found my aerial booster splitter. I think I should probably throw that away now as well.
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking about that the other day as well. How many times do you actually watch live TV? I mean, you do tend to watch news and sports type stuff, but everything else I tend to watch on catch up.
Yeah, well, this is
Yeah.
one. I mean, this is one of the age-old things. I mean, I tend to watch things. I mean, I didn't have a recorder box for a while, so I watched most things on catch up, and now I've got my recorder box in. I've realised how much better that is than catch up, because catch up, unless you want to get through certain services, you get lumbered with the adverts and the trailers and things. And I don't mind the adverts. It's just, I don't know about you, I find certainly on a lot of the UK catch-up services, the adverts repeat over and over again. So you'll always have the same set of adverts every single time. Yeah. And it drives me up the wall, if I'm honest. So I've now gone back to using my Freeview recorder box and fast forward through things again. Happy days.
Well, I think the advantage I've got is with I can't remember what's the Freeview thing, which allows you to catch up. But basically, you can just go backwards through the program guide to find your things, and actually push you. Yes, UView, and and that allows you to avoid that need to choose which is provided you. But of course, you do still get adverts, which is a bit of a pain.
Yeah. It's, I've just ended up with. Yeah, it's not a central system anymore, is it? It's you've got my music goes through the Sonos speakers, my Xbox does the streaming services, and my Skybox does the TV services. So and they're all you've got Amazon, Netflix, they're all different services, and you've just got to operate all these different services.
Actually, what on the subject, a little bit news I don't think we did cover is the fact you can now get Now TV on some of the Amazon TV Fire sticks. It hasn't been the modern ones, the newer models, but you can actually, there is now a Now TV app available, which was, considering the disputes they used to have going for ages, that is pretty amazing. And also, I think now on the Skyboxes you can get Fire TV as well. You get the Prime TV stuff, which is quite good to see. But yeah, that was a surprise when I switched on the Fire TV box after Christmas, that you can now get the Now TV app on there. Which is one less thing to have. I just need that Now TV app for my Panasonic TV now, and I could have no boxes plugged into the back of it.
I tell you what is interesting to see, though. I know we've mentioned this before, but is that my sons, so they're 18, and they don't touch the TV. They don't use Sky at all. So they might, if I'm watching the Formula One, they'll come and watch the Formula One. But most of the time, everything's on their Xbox or on their laptop, and they never watch terrestrial TV. They just, everything's Netflix, Disney, or Amazon. It's really taken over from their side. So if a show's on terrestrial TV, they just don't watch it. If it shows up on Amazon or Netflix, they'll watch it, no problem. But even iPlayer is a stretch for them. They don't bother with iPlayer. I don't know how the UK companies address that, because I'm sure that's their but they must be having an aging demographic for BBC and ITV.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean that was the whole point of BBC Three, was to try and push the demographic down. But even if you actually look at the demographics on people viewing the online BBC Three, it's still a lot higher than they actually wanted it to be. I
mean, it's funny that they watch BBC shows on Netflix. Yeah, no problem.
I mean that's why there's a huge push for BritBox at the moment, so that the terrestrial companies can get control of their media and make more money off of it than they get through Netflix and the like. I
mean, even stuff like ITV Player, they won't touch ITV Player. They like the experience of Netflix or Amazon Prime Video. Even that, they're not keen on Amazon. They don't. The only thing they don't like about Amazon Prime Video is the adverts you get at the beginning of each program. They want that uninterrupted episode, no interruptions. That's what they want. And iPlayer does it. I don't know why they don't use iPlayer so much, but there's no way that they would touch ITV Player, where you, like you said, Richard, you're locked into these adverts that just can't get rid of, repeated for 2 minutes, the same adverts over and over again.
And I
chance.
just, and I just want to say that at this point, obviously, adverts do support the broadcaster, so I don't object to adverts themselves. It's purely the repetition. It's like, surely smart engineers can work out how not to show you the same advert 3 times in the space of 10 minutes, and surely it can be done.
Well, that does predict that they actually get more than one person buying an advert for that section.
But yes, it is a problem, isn't it? Yeah, certainly.
Yeah, so I don't know how I mean, when we're doing this show, when we're doing in 10 years' time, when we're celebrating whatever show 9,000 or whatever we are, we'll be to see what's happening then, and whether as my teenagers become adults, and whether they change in their circumstances means they go back to terrestrial TV when you get families and that kind of thing. I don't know whether that changes, but
Radio 4 is always waiting. Radio 4 is always waiting.
Yeah, absolutely. I've still got my BritBox subscription, which I was going to cancel after watched all the Doctor Who episodes, but actually they keep putting old things on there that I actually like
exactly,
old Dad's Army on there.
Yeah, I mean I've got one too, and it's been surprisingly good. I guess I'm starting to get concerned now that I've now got 4 subscriptions going at once, which means it's beginning to get expensive. Because all the stuff that I would have watched on Netflix has now moved to BritBox, it seems. There's stuff on Disney Plus which was on Netflix, so it's starting to separate, and so now I'm aware of the fact I'm paying probably the best part of £20 a month, which I know in Sky terms is nothing, but it's more than I was paying before. And of course, one in the UK at least, one also has to pay the TV license as well.
Yeah. Well, I will say I think. I keep thinking, I'm gonna do one more month of BritBox. I've watched everything that I want to watch, and then they put the Beiderbecke affair on there, or from 1980s.
Yeah,
James Boland, fantastic.
That's a brilliant show. Yeah, the Beiderbecke tapes, Beiderbecke Connection, Beiderbecke affair. Yeah. Those 3. Yeah. I can't believe I know that. It's terrible, isn't it?
Yeah. I know. Sure. And they put Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy and Blake Seven, and they just keep Sapphire and Steel, and they just add things on that I think. One more
Steel.
Yeah.
Showing our age here.
Spoiler. Sapphire Steel. Watching it now turned out to not be very good. It was not as good as I remembered it being. I remembered it being amazing. Watching it, I thought, oh, actually, this is not quite as good as I remember it being. The effects are really quite ropey, aren't they?
Yeah, I had the same thing with Space 1999. I did not so much the effects, because I kind of expected the 70s effects, but the pacing of some of the episodes. You think this is really 70s.
Yes.
Younger kids now would not watch this. So that was our recap of our predictions from last year, and we'll look at our predictions for this year shortly. Did you have a media centre reference that you wanted to talk about, Steve?
Oh yes, I did. Sorry, yes, I forgot that. Yes, I actually had a chat with a former Microsoft engineer called Dave Plummer recently. He's done a few videos. He's got a YouTube channel called Dave's Garage, and he retired from Microsoft years and years ago. But he was involved in MS-DOS and also bits of the conversion of the Windows shell from Windows 95 to Windows NT4, stuff like that. And he also he told me he was actually involved in an early stab at Media Center. And it was based on Windows, and it was based on Windows NT. And this was before the product that we saw appear with Windows XP. It was kind of a much earlier ago, and he just described how he demonstrated it at a keynote with Jim Olchin and himself playing a Sega Virtua Fighter in 3D, and then doing movies and TV and things to show how it could all work. And one thing he said was, he was sad that obviously what eventually turned into, or it became with XP Media Center and Central Edition, was very, very different. But he did say it was he was sad that Microsoft hadn't made a more concerted push into the living room, because basically I quite like working on that. It was really fun, but sadly I couldn't prove it was a good business, and I think that may be the issue with Media Center. Full stop. It's like we all loved it. It was fantastic, but sadly the numbers just didn't add up, did it?
Yeah, the thing is that I think if they came up with something at the moment to bring all these services together and things like that, if they'd done it before Amazon had come along with the Fire TV and the Now TV 6, there was a niche about 2 years ago for getting these streaming services all in one place, which effectively the Xbox does, I guess. But actually, we talked about an Xbox media stickers at one point, and I think that would have been a really potentially good seller.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I've got 4 Amazon Fire Sticks in the house now because you know you buy them on Black Friday. They're the price for a round of drinks in a pub that when we used to go to pubs. And they work really well. I did think to myself, this would have been great if I could have had my PC as a media box, and then these could all be mini extenders, and it'd be great and stuff. But never mind.
Yeah. Oh yeah, mini extenders. Actually, this time of year was traditionally CES. I know there's a digital virtual version of CES going on, isn't it?
Yeah, there's virtual CES going on, and showstoppers and all that good stuff.
Yeah, I don't know. I could have done them and had a look, but I don't know. The appeal for me was always just meeting people as opposed to the technology. I think that was the most fun. The technology was why you were all there, but then once you were there, it was the meeting up with people and connecting with people that made it exciting. So I guess I could have enrolled for all the press, stuff for CES this year, but I just don't. It got less relevant for us anyway over the last few years. But.
Yeah, though I have to say that I'm on the showstoppers list, and there's some interesting stuff on there, which hopefully I'll be able to cover some of that next week. If they turn out to be as good as they seem to be, some of the things they're talking about.
Yeah, I always like showstoppers. So for anybody who's not aware, the showstoppers is an event not actually affiliated with CES, but they hired a big ballroom in one of the hotels, and they would just have companies demonstrating stuff. The tables with even big companies like HP were there, and small companies, and I saw all sorts of interesting stuff in there. And they had food and drink in there as well, and it was usually on a sort of a couple of nights before the main show, and it was always a good place to go and get something to eat, hang out, and see some interesting technology. So I think I saw Plex for the first time there, just as they were launching. So it was always interesting. No. Good. But still, even now, when it gets to that sort of week between Christmas and New Year, it always sort of takes me back to sort of CES preparations of you start getting your stuff together, and so I still kind of miss that, and I think it would be nice to get some of these big tech shows back together again in the future when we can do them and actually go meet people in person and talk, and because then you talk to people you wouldn't necessarily talk, you wouldn't arrange a Zoom or a Teams call with them, but you will talk to people just in passing. I miss that. So as we look to 2021, what things you're going to see? I mean, I'll talk Windows side where I'll see, but we don't have to restrict ourselves to that. So we'll start with you, Gary. What kind of things are you hoping to see this year, apart from the quantum computing?
Well, I think obviously my big focus has been on the EV side of things, the last thing, and I think some of the expansion of some alternatives to the current motorway services charging networks would be nice to see. I've noticed that there's a few Instavolts starting to come out, which are really good. I think if anybody's ever charged an electric car and had the experience of some of the poorer charging, to go to something like one of the Instavolts, which they use chargers from an Australian company who seem to have got the whole idea of user experience down to a T. Because basically you pull up the screens there in front of you, so you can actually see it from the inside the car, which is quite a useful thing rather than having it on the side of the charger. You can tap your contactless payment card on that screen. It will say connect the cable to the car, and it will start charging, and it will show you what you're charging, and at the end of it you just tap it again to tap your contactless payment again to stop the charge, and away you go. Really simple, really straightforward, and how charging should be. And hopefully going forward they will actually have the ability to plug and charge as well. But those sort of things are coming, and I think we've got several. I mean, I mentioned the whole Could Serve thing a few weeks back, that this first electric car service station, and there'll be more of those around the country as well. So I think we're going to see a difference in the way that happens. And at the moment you can. I mean, it's perfectly feasible to have an electric car at the moment and travel anywhere in the country, as we mentioned a couple of weeks back. But you do have to do it with planning, and as we also mentioned a few weeks back, and people like Richard would tend to agree with, people don't always like to plan their journeys and have to. We're all generally lazy, just like to turn up and go, and that's why motorway services exist, because people just wanted to stop, and yes, it's more expensive and whatever, but it's the convenience, and that's where I think we need to see changes in the EV world at the moment. We need to make it much more convenient for people, and that will happen. I think the critical mass is there for the vehicles now to make it profitable for people to come up with better services and easier to get to stuff. And I certainly see ease of use being a key thing there as well.
Yeah, well, that makes sense. And that we'll listen back. Hello to myself from in 2022.
Yeah, well, I think that's a pretty sound prediction, because I know quite a lot of what's going on in the industry. I've seen a lot of plans.
Yeah, so Richard, what do you want to see apart from more space for your Lego?
Yeah, obviously more space for Lego is very important. That's not to be not to be ignored at all. Well, I mean, I'll touch on Microsoft stuff, because obviously that's kind of my bag really, and also but a little bit of space things anyway. I don't think NASA's going to launch its big moon rocket, the SLS, this year rather, and I think there's going to be a delay to this 2024 landing on the moon schedule. I think that's going to happen this year. They're going to blink and say that's not going to happen. But I do think on the space front that the New Zealand rocket company Rocket Lab are going to snag a returning booster from a parachute at some point next year. That's my prediction, which I'm looking forward to seeing. I hope. And SpaceX will carry on doing SpaceX stuff. You know, we might see a Starship getting into space. Who knows? I hope so. So, on the Microsoft side, hardware-wise, I'm getting very worried about the studio. I do hope we'll see another studio in 2021. I'm slightly concerned that maybe it's coming. It's meeting the same fate as a Surface Hub 2X, because I think there were plans to make the bases interchangeable at some point, or hardware upgradable. Perhaps that's proven to be difficult to make work, and it's a very, very much of a niche flagship type product, so maybe it's not needed. So I hope we'll see a Surface Studio. I'm worried that we might actually hear they're going to just axe it quietly. The same probably goes for the Surface Book, because again, it's always set as a kind of awkward laptop, a power laptop. The Surface Laptop 3 is getting more powerful. The Surface Pros are getting more powerful. Is there such a need now for this big, hefty Surface Book? So I think there's a good chance the Surface Book may also be axed in favor of another product instead. And ARM-based Surface Go, is that fairly safe bet, do you think?
You'd like to think so, yeah.
You would like to think so.
Yeah.
Which brings me on to Windows 10. I think this is a make or break year for Windows 10 on ARM. If there's not an ARM-based Surface Go, then I'd be worried about the future for Windows 10 on ARM, because I think Microsoft's plans for ARM are more in the data center than the desktop, would be my suggestion for that. Windows 10 itself, it's looking very likely, just based on what we're seeing on the inside side of it, not just leaks and things or rumors from Microsoft, but it's looking like the next version of Windows 10 will be a very quiet affair, perhaps just an update coming this spring, with a big bang happening later on the year. What form that's going to take, just don't know really. People are saying the UI is due for a refresh. I can but hope that means they do the whole UI and we don't end up with yet another paradigm lurking in the Windows 10 desktop. So you have Windows 10 2020 version, Windows 10 2015 version, Windows 8, Windows 7, all the various icons and things, the big horrible mishmash. So I hope if they do an interface refresh, they do the whole lot and not just a few bits and pieces, and leave us with this mishmash of different versions of Windows in there. So that's my hope for the latter part, the latter part of the year, with Windows 10X appearing in the first half. That's my prediction.
Yeah, I think that I pretty much agree with that. I think we'll see Windows 10X coming up, in the first half, or maybe even the first quarter, but only for insiders, and very limited release of that, with it being released more generally later in the year. I think we should get that. I would like to get it sooner then probably Microsoft would like to give it to us, because I think it's important for insiders to test it. But that's something we've mentioned before. Whether we'll get what new Surface devices we'll get, I don't know. The interesting thing about the book and the hub, I guess with the hub they'll just carry on doing that with the existing versions of it, and the Windows 10X powered or Windows Core version, might get pushed out or not even ever exist, because that's, I think, with Windows 10X, definitely the focus has changed to single screen devices, lower cost devices. So I think they'll make the productivity devices run Windows 10, and maybe these lower power consuming, lower cost devices run 10X. Maybe we will see a Surface device running Windows 10X. That's what I'd like to see, but I don't think we'll see one of those really. I'm not. Maybe the Neo. Well, the Neo is the device, but maybe we'll see a single screen one. I'm not convinced we will.
Yeah, possibly by the end of the year, maybe. Perhaps
maybe the 100 that you quoted.
yeah. I mean, obviously, the other thing I did say as well was I would expect to see a Duo 2 this year. I think if a Duo 2 doesn't appear a year after Duo 1, then we have to start getting concerned, because there have been some quite alarming looking sales going on with the Duo 1 where the price has been absolutely slashed. I mean, just astonishingly cut. So pretty much just to wholesale prices. So it's which is good, but not that good when we bear in mind just how it is the only flagship phone Microsoft's got.
Yeah, and I think they can sort out their issues that like with the camera. I think really the camera is the main issue to sort out, and just add NFC and wireless charging. That's easy done. Then I think
and I think also be nice if the software could be. I mean, the software does appear to have gone a little bit backwards in recent weeks. I mean, if the updates made, but I think they should be fixable.
What I'd really like to see is I didn't mention this before. I've got Android 11 on my Note, and it's not very different really. It's gone are the days where you got massive changes when you go from one version to another, but some of the notification stuff is much better, so I'd like to see that come to the Surface Duo, which hopefully Microsoft can get that done in the first quarter,
and also
it makes it a big improvement.
And also, I think hardware wise, as you say, the camera, NFC stuff, but also it would be good if they could reduce the size of the bezels, particularly where the two screens meet. If they could they could narrow that down, so it's not quite such a big black line in between the two screens. That would be good too. Just a small evolution of the hardware, because the hardware as itself is pretty nice. It's just a few little things.
It's definitely my favourite device to use at the moment for stuff. The novelty hasn't worn off yet. Let's put it that way. Which is good for a phone. I'm doing quite well with that. But
my prediction for 2021: the novelty will wear off.
I do find it more productive. So, and I don't use the Note at all now, apart from pictures. So I do take it if I'm going for a walk and think I might take some pictures. I always take it with me. But if I'm for stuff where I'm at home, then I use this for everything. So yeah. So that's why I think we'll see Windows 10X in a very limited form. We'll see Windows 10 get some. I agree with what you said, Richard. We'll get the April-May update or whatever that is. That's what we're currently testing at the moment, and then there'll be a bigger release later in the year. Who knows what form that'll take, but it would be nice to get some UI refresh, because we like UI changes. It's all right them working months on under the cover changes that improve everything, but we like to see visual changes as testers.
We do.
yeah, we're fickle like that. And I mean, I don't know, in terms of any device purchases planned for this year, I think just the monitors, that's for me, and I'll have to wait and see. If there's a Windows 10X device available, I'll probably try and get one of those just out of curiosity. And I think I could do with more storage space on my main laptop. So maybe I'll replace my Surface laptop with a bigger version. But like you said, I don't really need something like the Book 2. So just a laptop with a bigger hard drive would do me. So I think that's what I'll be looking at this year.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pondering. I mean, if an 8 gig version of the Raspberry Pi 400 gets released, I may well get one of those. I'm just looking at ways at the moment whether I can squeeze some form of SSD or NVMe device into that shell, because while it's all very well booting off SD cards, if you can run a Raspberry, when one runs a Raspberry Pi or offer proper SSD, it's a nice experience.
Yeah, maybe that's it. Yeah. So I think that wraps up our first show of 2021, which hopefully will be give us another challenging year, but one that later in the year we can actually meet in person again. You never know. Richard says it's going to happen, so it's going to happen.
Summertime. In the summer, we're going to go to a computer museum and geek out massively.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, look forward to that, and look forward to the rest of our shows for 2021. We'll have our regular shows back next week. So, Richard, where can we find you? You can find me on Twitter at Richard_Speed. Excellent. And Gary, where can we find you? And you can find me on Twitter at Garry with 2 R's WMA. Excellent. Well, we'll be back same time, same place next week. You can email me, ian@thisLifestyle.com. I'm @IronSticks on Twitter. See you next week. Take care. Cheerio.